Hey everyone, ready to dive into something pretty intense.
Intense is right.
Today, we're tackling desert survival.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And not just for, those hardcore adventurers.
Right.
We've got a whole mix of survival guides, like the practical stuff,
Yeah.
scientific articles too, breaking down the how and why,
Uh-huh.
and even some personal stories.
Oh, wow.
People who've had some close calls out in the desert.
I bet those are gripping.
So picture this, you're stranded under that scorching sun.
Okay, yeah.
What knowledge? What would you absolutely need?
That's the question, isn't it? The desert, it really makes you resourceful. It's not just the heat,
Yeah.
It's the lack of water, how easy it is to get turned around.
Oh, yeah.
And then, boom, these sudden dangers pop up.
Like what?
Flash floods.
One thing that every single source stressed.
Yeah.
Tell someone your plans before you even go near the desert.
It sounds so obvious.
Right.
But you would not believe how many people just don't.
It's like they think, oh, it won't happen to me.
Exactly.
And then we've got Aaron Ralston's story.
Oh, man.
That guy who got his arm trapped by a boulder.
I remember that.
5 days.
Yeah.
127 hours.
Wow.
If he told someone his hiking route,
Totally different story.
makes you think, even for a short hike, right?
Absolutely. And it ties into this fragile masses idea that was in a few of the articles.
What that?
Basically, so many of us depend on systems that could just vanish. Like, that's it.
Like cell service.
Yeah, cell service or just someone randomly finding us.
Oh, I see.
The desert makes you realize, wait, I'm not as safe as I thought.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so onto the gear. This is the fun part, right?
Always fun.
I was geeking out over these survival guide packing lists.
What do they have?
Signal mirrors,
Essential.
fire starters,
Oh.
water purification tablets.
It's like a whole new world of gadgets.
I know, but you're right. In the desert, it's not just about being cool.
No,
It's about survival. That signal mirror could save your life.
literally. Attracting attention from miles away.
And a fire starter isn't just for warmth.
Nope. Those desert nights can get surprisingly cold.
Oh, right.
But the fire can also purify water.
One thing that surprised me. Drinking cactus juice.
Oh,
Bad idea, apparently.
that's a Hollywood myth.
I always thought it was like a desert staple.
Yeah, it's a good visual, but most cacti,
Mm-hmm.
their liquid is full of stuff that'll dehydrate you even worse.
Like what?
Alkaloids, toxins. It can make you vomit, give you diarrhea.
So no cactus juice. And here's another one.
Okay, let's hear it.
Keep your clothes on in the desert.
Now that sounds counterintuitive.
It does, right? In that heat.
Yeah.
But the sources, they're pretty adamant about it. Why is that?
It's all about sweat. Your clothes, they actually slow down how much of it evaporates.
Huh.
So that little bit of moisture trapped against your skin, it conserves water overall. Plus, no sunburn.
Oh, right. Sunburns dehydrate you too.
Oh, right. Sunburns dehydrate you too.
Big time. So clothes, it's like your personal shade.
Exactly. And speaking of adjusting to the desert, we got to talk about our internal clocks.
What do you mean?
All the sources, they say, to basically become nocturnal.
Nocturnal, like bats.
Well, not quite. But travel at night, shelter during the day.
Oh, I see.
Makes sense, right?
Why?
It's cooler at night, you won't sweat as much,
Oh, yeah.
more efficient travel, embrace the moonlight.
But then you've got those freezing desert nights to deal with.
The temperature swings are wild. That's why layering clothes is so important.
Right.
And a fire at night, not just a signal anymore, it's essential warmth.
To prevent hypothermia, you mean?
You got it.
There was this one shelter trick that I found really interesting.
What was that?
The double blanket trick.
Oh, yeah.
2 emergency blankets, some brush in between.
Right.
Why is that so effective?
Air.
Air.
It creates an insulating air pocket.
Oh, right. Air is a good insulator.
Surprisingly good. But, word of caution, if you're thinking about using a natural shelter, like a cave, check it very carefully.
For what?
Animals.
Okay.
You don't want any surprises.
Okay, good point. Let's talk about water.
A big one.
The sources were super clear. You can go weeks without food,
Uh-huh.
but without water in the desert. Just a few days.
Yeah, it's the most critical factor. Finding water, it's like being a detective.
A detective.
You gotta look for clues, animal tracks going downhill,
Okay.
patches of green vegetation. Even digging near rock slopes can be a good idea.
I'm curious, why do those things actually indicate water?
groundwater.
Groundwater.
Animals, they're drawn to it, right?
Makes sense.
Green plants mean moisture.
Oh, right.
And those rock slopes, they act like funnels, guiding rainwater underground.
So that's why those seemingly random spots.
Could be hiding a water source.
That dew gathering tip was pretty cool, too.
Oh, yeah, collecting those little droplets before dawn.
It seems almost poetic, doesn't it?
It does. And surprisingly effective. Especially when other sources are scarce. Another trick. Flip over cool rocks before dawn.
Why?
Condensation. A thin layer of water you can collect on the underside.
That's pretty clever.
Resourcefulness is key in the desert.
Okay, let's talk about the scary stuff now.
Ooh, what's that?
Dust storms.
Oh, yeah.
And flash floods. The sources, they describe them as incredibly powerful.
Intense.
Imagine that silence, right? And then this wall of brown just approaching.
The dust storms are like the desert's anger.
They sound terrifying. How do they even form?
Strong winds whipping up sand and dirt creates these massive clouds and you can't see anything.
And breathing in that sand can't be good.
It's really bad for your lungs. A mask or even just a cloth over your face is vital.
So we've got dust storms and then floods in the desert.
It's weird, right?
So it seems contradictory.
But that hard-packed ground, it doesn't absorb water well.
I saw.
So heavy rain, it just runs off super fast, super powerful.
Creating these flash floods.
That can wipe out anything in their path.
So those dry washes, they can become death traps.
In an instant. Remember that tragedy near Utah, Arizona?
The one with the flash flood?
Yeah. 18 people. Caught in a dry wash that turned into a raging river.
It's a reminder that those areas, they could be really dangerous.
Especially after it rains. Avoid them.
You know, it's one thing to talk about the physical stuff in the desert.
Yeah, the heat, the water.
But what really hit me from all these sources was the mental side.
The mental game.
Staying calm, not freaking out.
Easier said than done.
Right. I mean, you're lost. You don't know what's going to happen.
The desert tests you inside and out. Panic, it can mess you up big time.
Leads to bad decisions.
Exactly. When you're trying to survive, a clear head is everything.
Okay, but how do you actually stay calm?
How do you?
You're dehydrated, maybe hurt, all this danger around.
Well, a lot of the sources talked about focusing on small things.
Small things.
Yeah, like don't think about the whole I'm lost, I'm gonna die thing.
That's pretty overwhelming.
Right. So you focus on what you can do. Building a little shelter, finding a bit of water, even just stacking rocks.
Stacking rocks.
It gives you a sense of purpose, like you're achieving something.
Instead of just feeling helpless.
Exactly. And it stops your mind from spiraling, you know.
Makes sense.
Keeps you a bit more positive.
Speaking of positive, all the sources talked about hope.
Hope.
That belief that you will be rescued, that things will be okay.
Right. How do you hold on to that when things look bad?
That's the tough part.
Some sources mention specific things like looking at the stars at night.
The stars.
Yeah, to feel connected to something bigger.
I get that.
Or thinking about good memories, setting little goals for the day.
To keep your mind focused.
Exactly. It's about fighting back against despair.
Keeping that hope alive.
Because that hope can fuel you to keep going.
It's amazing how much of this desert stuff applies to regular life, you know?
You think so?
Yeah, we're not facing death out there, but...
Right, but we have our own struggles.
Staying calm, taking small steps, having hope.
Those are useful everywhere. The desert, it just strips everything away.
Gets down to the basics.
And those basic ways of coping, they work anywhere.
Okay, let's talk about some specific tips that stood out.
All right, what did you like?
This everyday carry idea.
Oh, yeah. The EDC kit. Not just for survivalists anymore.
It's about being ready for anything, right?
Even in your daily life. Doesn't have to be fancy.
A flashlight, a multi-tool.
First aid kit. Simple stuff that can be the lifesaver.
One source even said to carry a signal mirror. Just in case.
You never know. It's the little bit of preparedness.
Goes back to that fragile masses thing, right?
Totally. The more you can do yourself, the less you depend on shaky systems.
It's not about being paranoid, just capable.
Exactly. A few tools, some skills.
Gives you a feeling of control.
Like you can handle things.
I loved this quote from one of the experts.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
A bit of resourcefulness, awareness, and a bit of preparedness can go a long way.
That's good. Sums it up nicely.
It's not about being some wilderness expert.
No, it's more about common sense.
Thinking creatively.
Being adaptable. Anyone can do that.
Okay, before we move on.
Yeah.
Some really basic tips that stuck with me.
Hit me with them.
Staying hydrated.
Yes, always important, even when you don't feel thirsty.
Easy to forget.
It really is. And dehydration can sneak up on you, affect your thinking.
So sip water throughout the day.
Good advice. What else?
Checking those caves for animals before you use them.
Oh, right. Basic safety. But easy to forget when you're in a rush.
It's about paying attention, even when we're not in survival mode.
Being aware of your surroundings. That desert mindset can be useful anywhere.
Like looking for green plants is a sign of water.
That one surprised me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Makes you realize how much we miss just by not looking closely.
Nature gives us clues, we just gotta see them.
And those tricks for getting dew or condensation from rocks.
Those were neat.
It's like the desert makes you think outside the box.
Use what you've got. Be creative.
You become a master of improvisation.
That's a good way to put it.
One last thought. The desert teaches us about pacing ourselves.
Pacing ourselves.
Yeah, not going all out all the time.
Conserving energy. Being strategic.
Just something we forget in our busy lives.
The desert forces you to slow down. Maybe that's a good thing.
Find a rhythm, push forward, but also know when to rest.
Sounds like a good life lesson to me.
You know, going through all this desert survival stuff,
Yeah.
it's really about mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not just the skills.
It's mental toughness, resilience.
Believing you can get through it.
One source said it's like tapping into your primal instincts.
Oh, interesting.
That part of us that's hardwired for survival.
It makes sense, you know. A crisis strips everything away.
The layers of civilization.
And those instincts, they come out, you adapt, you improvise.
Like the desert saying, this is who you really are.
This is what you're capable of.
It's not just surviving, it's thriving.
Using those challenges to grow stronger
Makes you wonder how to get that mindset.
in everyday life.
Yeah, when we're not facing, life or death.
Maybe it starts with being uncomfortable,
Uncomfortable.
getting outside our comfort zones.
So not playing it safe all the time.
Exactly. Seek out challenges. That's where you really grow.
Like what?
Learning a new skill, taking on a tough project at work.
Oh, or having that conversation you've been putting off.
That too. Push yourself beyond what you think you can do.
And learning to bounce back from failures.
That's resilience. The desert teaches you failures happen,
They do.
but you don't have to let them stop you. See them as opportunities.
And learn to get stronger.
Exactly. Stepping stones.
One source mentioned staying busy in a survival situation.
To keep your mind occupied.
Yeah, like stacking rocks, stargazing.
Just to pass the time.
But it gives you a sense of purpose.
Even in the middle of nowhere.
It's about ritual, routine.
Even when everything else is crazy.
Maybe that's something we can use when we feel overwhelmed.
Oh, I like that.
Find those grounding activities to stay centered.
Could be meditation, gardening, being out in nature,
Whatever helps you feel calm.
and in control.
This desert deep dive, it's been about so much more than just staying alive.
It is, isn't it?
It's about the human spirit,
Resilience.
finding hope in tough times.
The desert shows us what we're capable of.
So as we wrap up, here's something to think about.
Okay, what's that?
What part of this desert survival mindset can you take with you?
To face your own challenges,
Remember, the desert teaches us
you can survive anything.
with some resourcefulness, creativity, and grit.
And a whole lot of hope.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay prepared, and stay resilient.